This is the March 22nd interview with Ruth Hawley. She's almost 92 years old, and she's been talking about her childhood and her youth. And in the last interview, she talked about her early teenage years in Sidney, Nebraska. And this interview starts with when they've left Sidney, Nebraska, and they moved back east. So can you tell me about what happened? You left Sidney because your father couldn't pay the taxes on the farm.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Well, the condition of the times were just about as bad as it could get. And we didn't owe, except for taxes, which was 32. We hadn't been able to, because we'd had a crop failure the entire time we were there.
Yeah, we've already talked about that in the other interview.
Well, anyway, we got our foreclosure and we had to leave. But we did have a car that we had possession of, and it wasn't paid for. And
where did you go after Sidney?
Well, my father's nephew, that would be DeLoss's brother, Cliff. He had settled out there in Portland, Oregon, and he had built a life for himself. And he had married and had his family. His wife's name was Cora, and we apparently there was correspondence by mail, and so we had nowhere else to go. We were at the bottom of the line.
So you headed out to Oregon.
Line. We literally were at the end of the line. However, Russell, by that time, he'd had 2 years of college.
Where did Uncle Russell go to college?
Well, he went to this private...
Wesleyan?
No, Westland.
Westland.
They're in university place.
Mm-hmm.
And but he did have 2 years, and he was an honor student.
And he left because the family was moving.
I was about 15, and Russell was 19. So we were practically grown-up people by that time. And we had a decent car, and away we went. We'd taken my dad had sold off all the furnishings we had in this lovely home we left behind, and we got, I think, about $200 out of that. Well, we headed off for Portland, Oregon. Well, by that time, Russell had decided he wanted to be an actor, and it really was his anything he decided, made up his mind, we went right along with it, because we knew he had the smarts. He could do anything he wanted to be. He could be an actor and be a successful one if he had any. So anyway, we got up to Portland, and they were so tickled to have us there and have family, and they were living out on the banks of the Washougal River, which was not too far out from town where Cliff worked in the mills as a day laborer. Well, I can see my father being a day laborer, like ice cream in January. That wasn't his forte at all. But he went along with it, and they got themselves lined up, and we paid 6 months rent ahead on a summer cottage that was out there neighbor to Cliff's, down the road about a half a mile where they lived. And it was a very nice, for a summer cottage, vacation cottage. But we were going to live there. The man that owned it wanted somebody in the place. So Russell came to his senses that, hey, this is not, that meant Russell go to work in the mills too. Well, he woke up, hey, I'm not going to do this. He had 2 years of college, and they didn't really ask Russell anything about it. So my father went in, he paid, I think he paid 6 months rent in advance on that cottage. And Russell threw a fit. I'm not staying here. I'm getting out of here. This is no place for me. I die here. Up there in the mill town and all those. We had a beautiful scenic place where we lived. We had a house and everything, and I had lined up to go to school with Cliff's daughter, Pauline, into there was a school bus to take me in.
What was Cliff's last name?
Lynch.
Oh, Cliff Lynch. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be Cliff Lynch.
Okay, and Cliff Lynch is...
That was DeLoss's brother.
Okay, I got it.
Sam's oldest child.
Okay, I got it.
So, and they were tickled pink, but Russell, he drug his heels. I'm not living here. I'm getting out. This isn't for me. Because he was old enough to, and we were dependent on him for his help, because we were at the bottom of the end of our tether. So my dad, he was just ready to blow his brains out. He was at the end of his rope of having everything go against him. So, all right, while we still had possession of the car and could get out, we did have a nice clothes and things like that. We weren't coming along like gypsies. So my father went into town, and this man happened to be a good mason, and my dad told him that he all but got on his knees to ask for his rent back, which was, I think, maybe 6 months, $15 a month. Something. It wasn't very much, but it was a lifeline for us to get that money back out and tell him we couldn't stay. Because Russell, he couldn't, and there really wasn't any reason for it, because my father had no business working in the mills. He was as helpless as a kitten on anything like that. And of course Stella, she was like a chicken with her head off, but she never, it was all at a distance in her mind. That wasn't her concern, any of it. So we got in the car, and we headed for San Francisco, at least get to a city that had something to offer besides working in the mill. So we landed in an area called Mission area, and it was the only place in the San Francisco area that had proper sunshine all day long. It was a way the currents of the air moved around, and it was a working man's area. And it was had a good school there, and it was quite a sizable. And we managed to get an apartment that was up for rent, and it was up on the 3rd floor, but a very nice apartment. It was ever so cheap in those days. So we paid, I think, 1 month's rent. It was probably $25 maybe a month. It wasn't very much. And I enrolled in the Mission High School. That would be my first year of first part of the 12th grade. And that was walking distance, and we were close to the nice shops, and it was all new and glamorous to us to be there in the Mission Belt and we had sunshine. Well, my dad, he got hooked in with a realtor company, and he would babysit these. The housing market was full of houses that were being foreclosed on, and it was a dead market. Well, he didn't get any money at all, except his time that he put in as being a realtor. But Russell got a job as being a drug clerk in a private-owned drugstore for an old couple that hired Russell to be. Actually, they fell in love with him. He was going to be their heir and everything else. They just adored Russell to show up on the scene and take over. And it was in normal times it would, but I think he got $15 a week pay. Well, by the time he paid his car fare over there, bus fare, and but that was after about 3 months there. It was terrible, hard depression type problems, and Russell wanted to get down into the Pasadena area with the Pasadena Playhouse.
So he wanted to be an actor down there.
Oh yeah, he was. He had had 1 year of one summer. He went on it with a traveling troupe out of the university where he went to school. He traveled all one summer as an actor. he had his baptism of being an actor, and he knew how to do his lines, and he was a good actor, and he'd had that experience. Well, before our money really ran out, we crept out of that apartment early one morning before the woman could measure people that were in the. That's the only time we ever did anything like that, but we had to. We couldn't, and the woman was a belligerent landlady. She was a tough old egg, and we were down so close to the zero money. I don't suppose we had $50, if that, to get gas to get down to L.A. That's where my mother's cousin Ruth Hepp lived. Her and Leo Hepp. They're in not Glendale, but in that general area. I can't remember now.
San Marino?
Not San Marino.
Not yet Pasadena or
where they had their home there that she fell heir to. Charlie and her mother, Hattie was her name. Ruth Hepp's mother's name was Hattie. And Ruth fell heir to it, and then her and Leo, that was her high school sweetheart, they were married. Well, we landed on their doorstep. But boy, we kept quiet about our real situation, because nobody wants anything to do with you when you're really on the down and out. That's when you get kicked in the head for sure. We're here to visit, and we're making a move, and Russell, my dad's nephew, that would be Lawrence Kiefer. It's either Lawrence or Carl. They were the two brothers, and I believe it might have been Carl. He had a friend who was a druggist, and he introduced Russell, said Russell was looking for work, and Mr. Bacala hired Russell. Well, everything just turned up roses right now.
That was in Pasadena?
Oh, yes, the best. We couldn't possibly have done a better thing. The land, that's where Russell wanted to head for to start with, because it was right walking distance to the Pasadena Playhouse, and he could, with Mr. Bacala, he could, he had his, there was no much in wages, but he worked as a soda jerk there at that drugstore. Jobs were hard to come by.
So basically you made the move out of San Francisco down to Pasadena for Russell.
And then we pulled in on Leo and Ruth and pretend to be visiting relatives, and we'd come to visit them. So we couldn't pay rent and we stayed there maybe better part of a month. Getting settled in and Russell got his job, and my dad, he picked up with a realtor company there, because he had his real estate license and everything, and he was a master salesman. Well, we, with Russell's money and what we had left, we rented a small apartment, and then it took time to gather up money. There was another place we had our eye on, which was downstairs of an old home that was a proper Midwestern type home, and then there was two small apartments up above us, 390 North Oakland, and that was where we lived. After we hit there, we found it. It was a proper home, and there was parking facilities in the back of the lot with several other rentals in there. It was a rental property, and
so
I
did you go to high
enrolled
school?
in Pasadena City College.
So where did you graduate from high school?
Well, in San Francisco, I took the first half of the 12th grade. Well, then I moved down to Pasadena, and I was graduated from high school in Pasadena.
Okay, so
only one semester, but
which high school? Pasadena High School.
It was Pasadena City College, all run in one. It was all the same.
And
I only went to the one school, but
okay. So at that time, they had the high school
they had
the college.
The last 2 years of high school and the first 2 years of college.
Okay.
They had or something like that, but I was. It was just made to order, and
you could walk to school.
I walked to school. It was about an easy mile or a mile and a half. It was quite a distance, but that didn't bother me any. I was a good walker, and Stella was the housekeeper, and she did her share. She liked it out there because she had good friends, and there was Warren Lynch, my dad's brother. He was friends of a lady who was we visited back and forth, and then there was other good close friends that came to visit us from where we lived in other places. Like the Slater family came out from Sydney, and we were 3 blocks off of the main street that the Rose Parade went down.
Colorado Boulevard.
And that was such an attraction that anybody that knew us, they'd come and pull up and park in the, even though we didn't own the place, they'd pull up into our front yard because that's what was done. Was there anybody that had any kind of a yard? It wasn't proper grass or anything. It was under we had a big old palm tree that couldn't hurt the ground any. And it was, I don't remember anybody ever even mowing that place. It was just bare ground.
And did Uncle Russell get involved in the Pasadena Playhouse?
Right away, because he was a talented actor, and he had his credentials as being an actor, and that was were the days when you tried out for a part, and he did. He tried out he had his first lead on main stage, and guess what? He gets drafted.
Oh, no.
To go to the week he was to open up on his first break on the main stage of the Pasadena Playhouse, he to be drafted. Oh, he was heartbroken. He was just devastated. That's an opportunity of his whole life. He dreamed of being something like Leslie Howard or this, that type of thing. And he would have been.
Mm.
So the Lord works in mysterious ways, and he got drafted. Well, he goes down to be drafted there across that big bridge there at Long Beach.
Into San Pedro.
San Pedro. And he goes over, and he's had such good credentials, they snagged him off, and he never left that area. During the rest of the war, he stayed at San Pedro as he had business training, typing, and guess who was the first somebody that was connected with the Lynch family on DeLoss's side. Anyway, that was the very first one of the first people he inducted, and he worked at the induction center there at the military facility, and he was able to come home every week, and then it wasn't very long till the war ended then, and he was sent to the Philippines to close things down, but he was still in the danger zone in the Philippines.
When did he go to the Philippines?
That was after he was sent over there. After
the war ended. No?
No, it was the end of the war, coming to an end. But he was sent to the Philippines.
Yeah, I think Uncle Russell went to the Philippines. That was his first diplomatic assignment when...
No,
both?
no.
Oh, both? Okay.
This had nothing to do with a diplomat. He was just G.I. Joe. No. So, he was there at the induction center 9/10 of his military career.
Okay.
Then that last 10th, he was sent off to close up and have a semi-charge of the offices and things being closed out.
Okay.
But anyway, he was right between the retreating enemy and our own forces. He was in the middle of it.
Okay.
And he had to be, because they'd slip across the line, they'd kill you. And he was in danger. He was in real, actual danger from the enemy diehards that would sneak over and cause havoc.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way they did.
And he happened to meet Warren in the Philippines?
Yeah, he met Cousin Warren.
Warren Stage?
Warren Stage. And now I've even got pictures of the two of them taken over there. And Russell and Warren were in the, I forget now what but they were all called.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the wind off. Well, then their things calmed down, and he came back to Pasadena.
Okay, meanwhile, what were you doing in Pasadena?
I was going to Pasadena City College.
Uh-huh.
And I had had my 2 years. I was graduated, and this was my post. I was taking extra courses at third year, postgraduate work in the Pasadena City College.
What kind of classes did you take?
Just ordinary arts and science, because I was expected to go on to. I'd been where President Nixon was graduated there. I expected to, I hoped to go there. But in the meantime, I'd met your father, and there was that other thing in brewing about getting married. And my dad, he was a good guy and all that, but it'd be better for me to get married for him to pay for me to go to college a whole lot.
So how did you meet Dad?
Huh?
How did you meet Dad?
Oh, it was on a blind date, right when I was going to Pasadena City College. There's a girl in my class knew this fellow that was trying to get dates for these buddies of his in the military. And he was going to a mechanic school over in Glendale. And he was about, 23 years old, 2 or 3.
Who, Dad?
Yeah. Well, I was 21 when we got married.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very long. I was about 20 when I met him, and he'd be 21 and a half. So that settled the situation, what I was going to do. I was going to get married. That's the way my folks, they were born and bred for that notion anyway. So, and I didn't have any real thoughts on it. It didn't make much difference to me. Rex was a swell-looking guy, and he was getting his training in Air Force mechanics school there in Glendale. Well, he goes off to Salt Lake City, and he's stationed there, and we corresponded for roughly a year, and we decided then we'd get married before. We were saving money, trying to save a few pennies. I suppose I had maybe a couple $100, $200 or $300, something like. It wasn't very much, but nobody could ever figure out why we didn't get married in the beginning. In place of waiting, we waited almost a year. And he was in Salt Lake, and we corresponded by mail, and then I got on the bus. We set a wedding date, and he was stationed in Salt Lake City as a mechanic in the military, and I rode a bus. My dad, I just paid off the last payment on his car. I think it was something like $65. Guess what he gave me for a wedding send-off?
$65?
No, I think it was $20 bill. I'm not quite sure, but maybe it wasn't even that much. And there I had given him some of my savings, so I think it was $65 that out of my savings to get married on. Then when it came to me to really go off and get married, he gave me a $20 bill and go off by bus on my own to get hold of a minister or whoever and do it all by myself and know nothing of any marriage preparations at all. And your dad met me, and we got a hotel room, and we didn't sleep together or anything like that. And that was for different times. They don't do like they do today. Have 2 or 3 kids before. So anyway, we got married, and our first apartment.
Wait, tell me about the wedding ceremony.
Well, the girlfriend of his buddy, Harry Frederickson's girlfriend, was the only one who had a car. And we didn't have brains enough to know how to even go about getting a hold of a justice of the peace or anything. and somebody told us we could get married over in Preston, Idaho, without having to wait. Just drive over there. So he woman didn't. She was a total stranger, and I don't blame her. It was a screwy thing, and we were late getting started. Well, then we headed off for Preston, Idaho, to the courthouse, and we got there and went storming up the stairs in the courthouse. That was this other couple and your dad and I, and the man was just in the process of turning the keys to leave his office. And we said, oh, we've come to get married. And that man he was a decent guy, so he opened up the office and he just blah, 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 blah. Now we were married. It was very quick and snappy. There was no ceremony, no nothing to it, because he was half peeved to think we'd interfered with his going home at the proper time. And we were married within a period of 5 or 10 minutes. It was in and out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was my marriage. And anyway, I had my dad's $20, and we got a hotel room down, and then from there we rented this little apartment. I think it was $15 a month for a room, sleeping room, in this, where we had a hot plate in the closet. It was one of the closets had been turned into sort of a, where you could have your can of soup or something, I don't know, and I didn't know how to cook anyway. So we were married that week. The next week came his orders. He was to leave the following week.
So you had no idea that was going to happen?
No, we had no idea. So I stayed on until the night before your dad was to leave, and he saw me off on the bus to go back to Pasadena.
So you married like 2 weeks?
That's all. And that was the marriage by a Mormon justice of the peace at Preston, Idaho. So.
Okay, well, I think that's enough for this interview. We'll talk about the next chapter in the next interview.
Okay, do you want to play it? Play it back?